host of today.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Jeremy. Well, welcome everybody. This is another great session of the Trusted Seed Conference. I think we should stick straight to the business and let's do a rocking session on the frameworks. I love frameworks. Back to you, Jeremy.
Oh, boom shakalaka waka. Well, let's let it rip. I think it'd be fun to do a quick round of intentions and distractions. I mean, it's already in there. We've already got some sharing of that information. I'd just like to invite everybody to make sure they're actively invited to throw their voices into the space. So who wants to kick us off with their intentions and distractions?
Yeah, I can be the first. So first of all, the first time I saw this like nested, picture of the commons frameworks, I was like really looking at that for a few minutes and really wanted to dive deeper. And in general, I'm super thankful that Julia started this work, so we can kind of have a better approach to this ecosystems. So I'm here to support this effort. See where we can intersect and where do we belong as trusted seed there as well. Regarding distractions, no distractions. And I pass maybe then to Giulio.
How does this thing work of the intentions and distractions?
What do you want, man? What's your intention for this session? All right. And
yeah, I think I will speak later when we begin. So now I pass the word to Elias, but maybe Victor that I don't know, or Ivy. Ivy is from Trusted Seed, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I can say it.
Okay.
Yeah, my intention for this session is to learn more about the commons. I'm also part of the common stack, so I'm very interested in this session because I'm sure that this session is very aligned with what common stack is doing. So yeah, I don't have any distraction. I pass it to Federico.
Hello. Well, yeah, I'm wondering, I'm interested in everything that is concerned to how to build communities and how to link them to also, let's say, new ways of thinking in terms of commons. So I'm very interested in the session, and I shouldn't have too many distractions unless people calls me. That's why I keep it in mute. So thank you very much, and I'll pass it to Victor.
Okay, thank you. So distractions, you already know. I have a sick kid, but I'm interested in the word economy. So first of all, I'm not familiar at all with the common stack, and I would like to hear like general information. I actually looked into website, but still didn't get the idea how does it work, the organization, and what product you are creating and problems you are solving. And then the word economy. So how are you being fooled and how the wheels are running, something like that. Yeah, thank you. And I pass to Jeremy, I guess.
Okay. My name's Jeremy. What's my intention for this space? My intention is to apply one of the 2 liberating structures I've never used before. So you guys are going to help me out with that, with your big brains. And I want to do that so that we can build a map, build on this map that Giulio has made and add to it and have a way to organize our thinking in such a predictable way that makes it easier for us to add to it again in the future. Distraction, I'm solo dadding this week, and my house is exploded already. My wife left yesterday, and like there's Legos here. I have huge Lego figures here on the table, and like work in progress that my son is doing, and just everything's exploded. So I noticed that clutter distracts me a little bit, but that's what's up. And Elias, do you want to jump in next?
Hey, yeah. So I'm glad to see you all. So I guess my intentions are like to look at how all these people with different projects and stuff come up and figuring out the framework where they all feel comfortable in. And looking forward to see liberating structures applied there. So distractions, I don't know. I still just see your image, Jeremy. It's not too much distraction. Apart from the baby, it's happening now sign over your head. So I don't see the images now, so I don't know who is still there. So I pass it to whoever is not talked yet.
Frederick.
Frederick, yeah.
Frederick?
Can you hear me?
Oh, you scared him. Okay, so I mean, if he comes back, he can introduce himself, but we can start maybe. What do you think?
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, he's back. Frederick, can you hear us?
Can you hear me? You hear me? Oh,
Very hardly,
hello.
but
Extra
maybe if you had
sketchy.
activate the video, the sound will come out better.
Is yes, and button. This one. The connection is very unstable and
Awesome, Frederick.
Okay. Okay. You say we can start because there is not so much time, and given that we have a few people, we can have a meaningful conversation and discussion around the thing. So thank you for coming. I really don't know how to condensate all the things I have to say, but I will go straight to the point. That is, what is this framework? I mean, I imagine that you have a vague idea of it, except for Victor, maybe because of the others, I think have at least spent 2 minutes thinking about it. But basically, if I can share the screen. Okay. Yeah, this is even bigger than the one you saw there, maybe, because I expanded it a bit. And my intention, it was meant to be like including also non-crypto, but for simplicity, I started with crypto commons. So basically, this framework is a map of the most interesting projects, let's say, or more a mixture of more innovative, successful, and well-oriented projects that I met on in our work of mapping and research and interaction also with these agents, because as you may know, at the Crypto Commons Association and now Commons Hub networks, we are trying to promote the post-capitalist economy. So let's say that there is a series of elements and criteria that we use to consider a project more or less post-capitalist and more or less commons-oriented, common-centric. And this map is like a map of the best project in this sense, like the project that more are near to our standard of what should be post-capitalist economy today and tomorrow. But in our pragmatic approach, of course, we don't interact only with our ideal agents or economic actors, but also with less, let's say, pure agents. So I mean, in this map, you won't have all the economic entities which we want to interact with or which we interact with or that makes sense today. Like you won't have the local cooperative bakery, but of course we are totally in for collaborating with local bakery. This is just a map for the highlighting of the most adherent projects to our strategic framework, let's say, or to our vision of the economy. And I think it makes sense nonetheless because yeah, there is a lot of very interesting thing going on. And also, this is another criteria of the framework. These projects to be here must be at least a bit successful and working, because if it's a very nice project theoretically but doesn't work, it doesn't have a meaningful business model, we don't want it here, because in economics things must work. And another premises is that I'm a sociologist. I know how much culture is important in general, also in economic life, but this is a map that wanted to simplify things to the economic level in order to have ideally a globally shared map, because basic economic needs are basically the same for everybody in the world, at least on average, or at least for regions. But so this map is not like saying that culture is not important, but it's just focusing on the economic dimension as a first level of shared envisioning and strategizing on the post-capitalist future. With Jeremy now we will speak about a bit about how we can create an evolutionary iterative process to develop this framework together and make it better with the collective feedback. And that's basically it. Sorry if I'm not 100% cognitively functioning today, but I slept very little and I was waken up by construction workers on my half of my head. So I not 100% human being today, but yeah, hope we can do it. And yeah, and last thing is that you see the 3 circles are the crypto commons economy framework, because yeah, we started from that. The other 3 circles will be like the non-crypto economic layers in the same structure, like information economics and all the other verticals. And they are represented in this way because ideally when this open decentralized generative infrastructure that we want on the blockchain are working, okay, all the projects that are not crypto focused or crypto centric nonetheless will use some of these infrastructures in parts of their operations. So yeah, it is a framework to include also non-crypto agents, in a perspective that in the future there won't be so much difference and everybody will rely on some kind of decentralized infrastructures. But for the moment, this difference is quite significant. And also in the future, there will be projects that are very, very crypto focused or actually infrastructures maintainers, and projects that just rely on them. That is quite a big difference. So Jeremy, I can leave the words to you. I would like you participants to think about this today and to interact with this today from your own perspective, with your own needs, in terms of what are your project's needs or individual needs, in terms of how this map could be useful for you. Yeah, so that these things become actually a useful tool and not just a research project or a theoretical envisioning of stuff. Because as we were saying with Jeremy yesterday, the problem with this kind of mapping that I'm sure all of you saw a lot of times is that they are nice at the beginning, and then there is no resources or no framework to maintain them in an effective way, and so they just remain there as a, and they become old because time passes, a lot of things happen, and and so on. And last thing for real, yeah, okay, related to resources available to maintain this framework. To me, this was a key point, especially for this problem that I just mentioned, that is difficult usually to maintain these things. So there is a content on the framework that I just explained the last 5 minutes, more or less, but the form and the structure of the process of this framework is as much important as the content itself. And I started it as simply as an externalization of what it was in my mind after this like 4 or 5 years of research and of the projects that we are actually interacting with or that we want to interact with. But yeah, I hope it can become something very different if it becomes useful and used by many other people. So yeah, it's very open now. This is just a representation among many that it could take. And yeah, so I'll say that I can leave the word to Jeremy.
Oh, thanks, Giulio. So, I mean, as the TLDR, from what I understand from that, Giulio did an awesome thing. He sat down and did a bunch of heavyweight thinking for us. And what we're going to do is we are going to build on that thinking with this tool that comes from Liberating Structures, Panarchy.
You want to share the screen, Jeremy, so that you move the needle?
Yeah, that's good. Let me go for it. I can do that. Let's see how this works. To the iPad, humans. There we go. It's in there. Giulio, do you want to share the link to this mural board?
Oh, yes.
For folks. You won't need it in this immediate moment, but we do want to create an artifact here together that allows us to update this map. So Panarchy is this liberating structure that uses the similar type of nested or holonic frame, right? The idea that each one of these places, each one of these levels is a whole context. And that whole context is also a part of a larger context. And that larger context is a whole context, but it's also nested within a yet ever larger context. So what we're going to try and do together is sort of update Giulio's thinking and either corroborate it, like we might come up with something that looks very extraordinarily similar to what he's already done, perhaps identical, or we might say, well, we thought about it, and this is a way that for between these brains and these people, we think it makes a little more sense to orient things along this sort of spectrum or dimensionality. And to do that, like I said, we can make mention of this tool that is Panarchy from Liberating Structures. So Panarchy, there's a lot of information about it, but we're going to get right into the sort of procedural style of it. And the first thing that we're going to do is we are going to generate the levels. So the first step in that is that solo, I want to invite each person to take some time to think about and list the factors. So you can read it right there. What are the smallest to largest factors influencing our chances of success? And again, our context here is this post-capitalistic, pluralistic coordination infrastructure that enables commons economics to really thrive. So again, what are the smallest to the largest factors influencing our chances of success? Include the micro, so the particles, individual peoples, teams, the meso, organizations, networks, and the macro, culture, politics, myths, all of the factors that contribute to the challenge that we're addressing, which is this, this large scale cultural evolution and systems change. And we're going to take 5 minutes to do that, which is going to feel like a good, long, proper window of time. So if you have the ability, grab a pencil and a piece of paper, whatever you like to use to take notes, and think about what these individual factors are. What are the smallest to largest factors influencing your chances of success? is that who has questions about that invitation?
You mean chances of success in the framework project or in the
I mean, the framework is around this project of moving towards post-capitalist economics and society, right?
Mhm.
So what we want to do is make a map of that. So first we're going to come up with the layers or levels. And to do that, we just want to have a big laundry list of the type of stuff that we're going to have to put on the ways that we can nest those levels. So again, what are the smallest to largest factors influencing our chances of success? And think about the smallest things, the micro scale, people, individuals, particles, teams, the mesoscale, organizations, networks, and the macro scale, culture, politics, myths, etc.
So smallest, largest is an issue of dimensions, not of relevance.
Exactly. Just what it relevance might be those factors, might be one of those factors. So put it down. We're not quite sure yet how we're going to orient and what the thing is that we're going to orient. We're going to do that together in the next step. But first we want the good laundry list of stuff. So I'm going to put 5 minutes on the clock. And I dare not play music because that will cause problems for Max on YouTube. But just imagine that we're listening to music, or maybe actually listen to some music while this 5 minutes goes.
Do we make these notes for ourselves, or should we put something on Miro?
If you want, you can put them on the Miro board, but I think that always feels a little bit trickier for me. It's not necessary that you put them on the board because we're going to do that together in small groups. So if you want to make your own notes on paper or however is easy, and then we can import them onto the board in the next round, that's cool too.
Can I put stickers straight away right now in the mirror?
Go for it.
Super, thank you.
You have my permission. All right, nerds, that's 5 minutes. So for our next trick, what we're going to go ahead and do, oh, Felix is in the waiting room. Jesus, how long has he been here? So my headphones clearly are pissing me off. For our next step, what we're going to do is we're going to move into pairs. And one's late. Holy Christ, I can't deal with that anymore. So what we're going to do in pairs is we're going to translate these factors into the level that we think about nesting these things together. So take the list of factors that you created and the list of factors that your partner created, and think about the levels and create the labels. So grab one of these templates in the Miro board at that point and like help us make a visual artifact of your thinking. Welcome to the party. What would I would say let's just jump into it, and in your pairs we can make sense of it. Does anybody have a truly like, I don't understand at all where in God's name we're at and what we're doing? Help for the love of Christ.
The levels is not clear thing, how to define which level my card belongs to.
Yeah, so what you're going to do more or less is we're going to take that list of factors, and we're going to think about how that list of factors sort of stacks together in growing contexts. So it might not be that the thing that you have written gets translated into a level, but what you'll want to do is just compare the list of stuff that you looked at, and then compare the list of stuff that your partner looked at, and think about, okay, how do these things fit together in ever expanding spheres of growing context? You know, what are those smaller scale concerns, and what do we call that level or sphere of influence that are concerns at that level, so to speak? Does that help clarify?
The only thing I didn't get yet, but like, what are the names of the levels, or we should just define by ourselves?
Yes, you're going to define that together as a pair.
Okay, so it can differ from pair to pair. In the end, it can be different,
Yes.
yeah? Okay, great,
Most
thank
definitely. Most definitely.
One question on my end, do we just Command C to copy the template, and do we just copy it somewhere else on the board? It's more functional, and plus the levels, we were looking at like 3 levels when we were doing the third experiment, but now we're talking about like making it what, like 8 level or 7 levels?
Yep. Exactly. So
Okay.
there are 7 frames set up here that you can grab, and I would suggest just grab the frame that corresponds to your breakout room. So grab that frame number. If you want to put your name on the frame as well, that's also great. So we can have keep some continuity of the provenance of this information. And go from there. So like I said, what we're going to do is take, I believe, 10 minutes in pairs and think about making this level thing sort of stick. So that'll be a good window of time for us to actually come to some amount of clarity. So I'm going to create 3 breakout rooms, 4 breakout rooms, because I can't count. I don't know how pairs work, apparently. Jesus.
We are 10.
Yeah.
So my math studies says that it could be 5 pairs.
Yep, exactly. Good to have you around, Giulio. Thank you so much. All right, so on your mark, get set, rooms are open, and I'm just going to start dumping people together. So
We just go randomly, or how does it work?
if you'd like.
Hey, Abby. You're on mute just in case.
Sorry, I was talking. Yeah, I only put 2 factors, but I feel like it's encompassing, and I don't know how to put them to label them.
Okay, I see yours one is like this greenish, right? Access to the right
Yeah.
information. Okay, we can grab, I think, the first one. We can call it Max and Ivy.
Okay. Ah, okay, I see it now.
Yeah. So again, it's just like so many ways to group those factors, and factors is also a pretty wide word, but I thought about kind of like levels of institutions, like nation cultures, then networks, institutions, teams, projects, and then tools, approaches, something like this. Maybe it should be on the intersections here.
Yeah. So I think fear of change will come into culture.
Well, yeah, you can. Yeah, it's like ability of different cultures to kind of adapt to changes.
Yeah. And I think I should break this down because access to information, opportunities, and resources. I don't know if this will go under tools and approaches or networks and institutions.
Yeah, for me, maybe like here somewhere in between, because like teams gather resources from wider networks, right? You can at least say like that, or maybe you feel other way.
But I think it will also, we can duplicate and put it also between tools and approaches, because resources, like for example, you know, in the current world, you know, it's like internet is now inevitable. And if you don't have access to internet, you know, it's hard to catch up.
But yeah, also internet is a network, right?
Though
So
I thought network here is like a network of people. But what I mean by access to resources, like the infrastructure and these tools, the technology.
Yeah, okay. We can maybe then add another card called technology, right? Tech.
Yeah.
Okay. I feel also like education is in a way a factor, but where would you put it?
I think it will be in the institution. I think when I rewrite, I think I should break this down because I put everything in one card. Access to right information. It can mean education as well. And then, yeah, opportunities, of course, it will fall under institution. Access to resources.
I also added another dimension I used for this previously. I'll put it in another color, purple. The funds, incubators, schools, games, media, persons. Anything else comes to your mind?
I'm still thinking.
Okay.
Like, I don't know if though I know that we don't want like a hierarchy in organization, but I feel like there's someone who should initiate, you know, an idea, who will bring the idea to you.
Yeah.
So, you know.
Yeah, I think in
So
the end,
it's
like
yeah, it's not like a leader, but someone who someone who initiates.
Yeah, I'll put it to the like, you know, in the end, it's always starts with somebody starting, right?
Yes.
So you can grow to like movement or group or whatever, but on the smallest level, it's like somebody making this decision. Yeah, maybe also add a decision as a like smallest decisions. And maybe the outcomes I'll put on the very top.
What else? Maybe in the culture, like support in general, because if you have this idea and nobody supports you, no, you don't have like backers, you know. It's hard to succeed when no
Yes,
one
yes.
believes in you.
Yeah. Maybe I'll put it here.
Yeah.
Or feel free
Yes.
to move it. Okay.
Yeah, I think it's in the culture.
Oh, you mean somewhere
Because you know,
closer to
in the
here?
Philippines, there's like there's like crab mentality. I don't know if you're familiar with it.
No, tell me. What does it mean?
It's like crabs always pulling down who's above them, you know. That's how crabs where they're trying to climb up, right? So in the Philippines, it's very common. Like if they see someone rising or going above them, they try to pull them down. So it's a Filipino culture. So I think yeah, that can be a factor. So you need people to push you, to support you instead of having this crab mentality. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Yeah. Didn't hear about it. I was, I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but when I was in Bogota, I was speaking with Aya from Ethereum Foundation, and I was asking like, why don't we see a lot of like DAO, you know, projects and cultures from Asia? You know, most of them are like Europe, US. You can attach it to, you know, some economical ideas, whatever. But she says like, in general, the DAO approach or like more group approach is inbuilt into most Asian nations or cultures, you know, like collectivity or something. And that's why they don't perceive it as like a new idea, or that they can't work as a group without a DAO or something, you know, it's just, you know, like not much of an innovation of them or something.
Yeah.
I also read that some part of this economical approach is different between Asia and West. It wasn't that for the production of food, you know, from the long time, there was like large irrigation projects were needed, you know, so like people were really relying on the government and on the like ability to coordinate to grow food efficiently, not as much as in like Western countries.
Yeah. And yeah, in the Philippines, also very common to have cooperatives. So having these DAOs are like equivalent of cooperatives. So yeah, it's not, that's right. It's not a new idea for Asian people, because we have these small organizations already that exist. But you know, the usual framework for these organizations, the small ones, is there's like a hierarchy. It's not like a flat organization. So,
but how
and
leader
that's
is
what
selected?
I think that
is it like
they vote? There's like an election. And usually these small organizations are like, they meet, they have like an actual meeting session, and they do this manual actual voting. I don't know now, but when I was younger, that's how I witnessed those cooperatives. and they have this. I think the main purpose of those cooperatives is to lend money to its members.
Mm. Oh, wow.
So yeah, they put money. Sometimes they contribute every month, and then someone will receive. They take turns in getting receiving the fund.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
exactly what we're trying to do with DAOs, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh no.
Excellent. Excellent. Then we know where this is a state, and you might find this with a lot of liberating structures. There is a state that we are pursuing. It's called confusiasm, where you're really not sure what the fuck is going on, but it seems the vibes are good, and you're getting somewhere. God only knows where.
No,
So-
I trust the process, and I know that I rationalize too much, so I trust the other people output.
Yeah, there you go. Exactly. What we're doing is the crowdsourcing this sense making. So, all right. So we've done the second step, translating in pairs the factors into levels, and you guys have done some form of leveling. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump into groups of 4. So your pair is going to join another pair, and you're going to basically try and do the same thing. You're going to try and synthesize these different things that you guys have created and try and create one frame for your group of 4. As a pro tip, what I'll highly recommend is that rather than explaining your thoughts and thinking over and to a whole new group of people, that's really boring for that person you just talked to, paraphrase your partner. So try and recall as much of the information that they brought into the conversation and share that with this new pair of people, and that'll give them the opportunity to check your understanding and then to add on and enrich. And if everybody does that, everybody gets covered, and we'll have a better understanding of the whole vibe. So in this third step, we're going to split it into groups of 4, and we're going to try and sort of finalize into one chart for that small breakout room. And then we're going to compare notes across those breakout sessions. Is that not clear? What's not clear? What?
How do you divide 10 people in 4s?
Very carefully. Watch. All right. On your mark, get set, race. I'm gonna open these rooms, and it's gonna.
I think
we-
we will extend, right?
Yeah, we're waiting for. Yeah, I see Giulio, and probably somebody else will join.
Hello.
Hello.
I was reading yours, and it makes total fucking sense.
You read our yeah.
Yeah.
Our cards.
Yeah, because I was a bit lost in the. Yeah. Okay, this makes sense. This makes sense.
I loved how you like put the law on the top. The law.
Yeah, that was Federico. I didn't know
Okay.
what to put because I put. Okay, let's wait for
Sure.
Federico should come, no? And we are this for okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Hello.
Hello.
Here we are. Okay.
Would you like to go first?
Yeah, why not? I'm going to tell you what Giulio, in his wisdom, has thought to put on the pad. It's just I need to find the pad again. Okay.
Is the one with the low.
It's yes, it's the one where the low one, and it's up on the top. But Julius thought about too much complexity thinking as one of the, let's say, middle factor. We are used to thinking too much and in very complex ways. And about a culture of separation that divides people into groups, subgroups, ethnicity, etc. It's what I would call a sort of excessive typological adaptation of pornography. So there are too many genres in our thinking.
Unexpected.
Okay, and I can go with Federico's points, where let's say philosophical / ideological or cultural. So at the more near to the process, we see ego and incapacity of dealing with friction. I think it's in the bottom because it regards strictly individuals. And then there are other things that you see appearing on more layers because they impact on more layers. Like, for example, corruption is present at all systems. I imagine was his thinking, and so he put it in all the layers. And then, yeah, macro scale processes, macro scale dynamics like chaos theory affecting everything, and the law affecting everything. So, yeah. I think they're all very macro in a way, but more than micro. But yeah, I think that makes sense. Yeah. Was I right, Frederic? Okay.
Maybe then I can go next and pass to Ivy. So I'm not sure where to start. Probably bottom to the top. So we spoke that in any case, everything starts with some leader making the decision, initiating something. So like it should be born at least in one head. And then through the technology and access to resources, we can go, with the scaling to gain or spread more access to the right information and opportunities that will lead to, factors of fear of change being one of the factors. And we discussed how in Philippines, for example, there is this crab mentality, where crabs kind of pushing, if they see somebody rising, they try to, kind of push on top of them. And that's how society culture works and leads to some outcomes on the higher levels. Or maybe that would be another type of mentality, support mentality. Ivy, have I got it right?
Yes.
Nice.
And yeah, I think we weren't able to discuss deeply the cards that you put here, Max, but I think most of these cards are related to what I wrote as well. So of course, at the bottom, there's this group of people. It's important to have this people or community building it, and then there's for access to resources, media is very important. And we have games, and then for access to information and education is important. So schools fall under the institutions, and then incubators. Maybe you can talk about it more, Max. And then the funds and foundations are also important, and they are at the top and part of the culture as well. So, Max.
Nice.
Yeah, you got it right. I just initially, when you say you're a hammer, you see nails everywhere. So I was I'm thinking about organizations all the time. And I'm just thinking about different scales of organizations and their impact. So that was, by the way, purple cards were one of the approaches I took before for structuring. Initially it was anti COVID movement, and now again with the war as well. How. If we would like to kind of proceed, have nice outcomes, where do we put our focus? But it starts again people combined together via some kind of media, playing some kind of games in the wide sense, not computer games, but more in general, some kind of interest games. And that leads to learning, that leads to producing of the project that are funded and create this. Nice.
We have 3 minutes. Should we try to make it?
I find it very interesting that Max and Ivy have stayed into a structure of a stack of possibilities. Instead, Giulio and myself, we went into the chaos, into the big whiteboard immediately, putting, you know, all kind of references. The thing that sounds to me that are mirroring one, let's say, the possibilities of emerging of a little organization or even a movement, and the other one is a sort of overlooking idea. And the things that are joint, in my opinion, are one. Let's say, if we have to pick one, my proposal, it's that is technical, that is about the infrastructure, is the question of identity. That I think it's very crucial, because it's about the link between your capacity of action in the metaverse of laws and everything, and your physical body. And it's connected with a lot of political and infrastructure-wise choices. And that goes from ego to exactly how do I get recognized by the state, or is the state issuing my passport or not, or you know, or the school giving me a title, or what is me in this. So I would propose maybe that. And the other one is the problem of gatekeepers in general. I'll pick up as a sort of gatekeepers can be also complexity. And this culture of separation anyway, you know, that everybody is alone in front of death and tax department.
Should we put like our macro things in the more external layer and leave the other?
That's we could also pick
as they do it.
The one we can pick the one that we think. Also, you, Max, and you, Ivy, we can pick just a few. Maybe you should pick those that goes into your table.
To be honest, I think it combines really nicely. I'm like a bit afraid to fuck up, maybe to create maybe a, you know, one on the top, you know, where we will kind of mix them. But,
yeah, that's a great idea. I think it's a great idea. So we keep a track of it. Yeah. All right. So let's. Also the sides, you can shrink or enlarge according to how much you like to focus, let's say, on in the discussion. Some things would be too long to discuss, probably, I don't know, or not useful, you know. I mean, chaos theory, it's not useful to talk about it.
Yeah, I'll just combine. But I see, for example, that where you have this ego, you know, and persons and leaders and decisions, it's basically like, no, it's a different kind of perspectives to the things, but it's basically around the same ideas.
That's what I meant. Yeah, you're right. That's what I meant. Also, this kind of idea that is like an onion, and outside is, you know, the law that takes, you know, constitution takes a nuclear war to change it. Yeah. And then all the laws, it takes maybe 300 years.
Boom, shakalaka nerds. Welcome back. As you can see, we are across our time boundary. So I just want to be respectful of that and say, thanks everybody for the time, attention, and energy that you have contributed to the thing. If you've got to go, you've got to go. Whenever it's over, it's over. But if you can hang out and you want to keep going on a couple more steps, I've got a 30-minute window that we can push and continue doing some good old-fashioned shared thinking together. So yeah, that's what's up. Then you consent. Sweet. Well, you know, we've gone through this thing. We've had several conversations about how these things sort of nest up and stack together to each other. Now we've got, if everything has gone according to plan, we'll have 2 charts. And what we want to do is then bring those things together. So who wants to sort of speak up for room 1 and walk us through the artifact of your conversation. I guess you can share screen all by yourself. You're grown-ups.
Well, I can go if you like, Giulio, Federico, Yagi. Yeah.
Yeah, I was
You-
I was thinking if we were room 1, and we were, so
You
Cool.
can add up after if I miss something, right?
sure. Thanks.
Well, if you can see, you know, we kind of have a wild mix of ideas. You know, we kind of identified that on the, like, if we're going bottom up, you know, in our self-organized structure, you know, like the lowest level is like the person, the ego, the leader, the initiator, the decision kind of level that translates into like tech, media, and that is to ideology and politics of identity, some kind of tooling we use, which grows further to like the teams and projects and potential corruptions, and to complexity, too much complexity thinking either in gatekeepers, education, schools, access to information and opportunities. And then in general to the politics, you know, some chaos theory, culture of separation. And then on the highest level, you know, what combines all of that is like the laws we have, the nations, the cultures, the outcomes, the mentality in general, you know, like whether it's crab mentality, where crabs kind of like try to kind of step on the other crabs, you know, not allowing them to get on the top, you know, fears of change, and foundations trying to kind of keep all of this complexity together. So it's quite cluttered, but in general, I think is the most comprehensive thing I could imagine. Can you add something, Tim?
Yes, thanks. I would like to add that it was very interesting how me and Federico, that are like a sociologist and a philosopher, were like very macro and very theoretical, and we went with chaos theory, cultural separation, the law. While Max and Ivy went more on a pragmatical level of stages of development of the goal, like the post-capitalist economy. And so, yeah, we started from individuals to like groups, and then, yeah, larger and larger structures of realization. And I found it interesting, yeah, and more effective than just going full-blown theory. But yeah, that's it.
Totally. Your brain plus my brain equals good brain. So group 2, what do you guys got? How is yours similar, different? That would be Elias, Felix, Federico, Victor.
Felix, could you, or Frederick?
Yeah,
Thanks.
or anyone else want to go, but I can give it a try then. Sure. We're I'd say a bit less developed. We didn't come to realize, as Giulio did in the end, that there was we weren't so clear about the different ways of approaching, I'd say. We started with individual drivers to start exploring, but also barriers to entry, such as the default not knowing anything about anything out there except for the status quo, and why that even would be good. Although I think that is slowly crumbling, the why that would even be good, to find an approach different to ours that is heading straight for the wall. But that then in the second stage would already start forming an active ecosystem in a welcoming community that connects to a state independent network, and aspires to live life as a desirable future, and act as if it were here and now, and thus create it, and same reflect on frictions along the way,
try to smooth them out, to identify problems and overcome them. Ideally, would escalate into supportive legislation, even while facing the drive of the existing system of capitalists using legislative systems to undermine any potential change and basically keep things as they are. But here the challenge would be to use legislative systems to enhance the economic soundness of post-capitalist approaches, because very much the possible and impossible is structured and reinforced by legislative systems that currently allow even unsound capitalist processes to persist for a while before they crash and burn. So ideally would escalate that into generally supportive politics, shaping public opinion and helping us to overcome the problem of most of the people not knowing about post-capitalist worlds and why they're good for them. So that would then, this initial problem, this initial friction would shift into a strong base of support once public opinion were won through supportive politics. And that's kind of where we stopped. Tim, would you like to add?
For me, everything perfectly described. Nothing to add. Thank you, Felix.
Good.
Abandoned by support. I know, right? Good, awesome. So yeah, what I appreciate so much is like the sort of plurality of approaches we sort of are already seeing present themselves. I mean, obviously in Max and Giulio's group, we've already got a lot of different dimensionality, and what I appreciate is that this is actually a very different set of dimensionality to those things. So what I would put to us as a group is, where do you think, how do we synthesize these two things together? We've got something that looks and sort of feels a little bit more like cohesive. How do we integrate the information from Felix's group into that thing? So in a way that goes, oh yeah, that has all of these different ways that we're looking at it.
My first idea would be to maybe kind of scale. Currently, like Felix and the teams, they just occupy 4 circles, but it feels, like we can just, like extend them, and then it may be a bit more comparable. Because I see, again, like the smallest level is like individual drivers, which is a lot like ego leaders, persons that we have. And public opinion and politics is looking something like the law, the politics, ideology we have also on the top.
Cool. Let's do that. Let's make it happen.
Can you repeat the question, Jeremy?
The question is just, how do we synthesize these things into one overview that sort of includes all of the information? And so what I get Max saying is that he sees it sort of the barriers to entry and individual drivers being very strong overlap with the work that your guys' group, and then as well as the economic soundness, legislative support. I mean, these things are in there, but there's a meaningful difference, I think, in the way that I see them clustered. I think this welcoming context, welcoming community, state independent network, like there's something in this, like that feels like a different thing for me, at least.
Yeah.
And I'm looking for also like redundancy. Pardon me, what was that?
No, I have the feeling that we need a third dimension, because some things are, let's say, spatially far, include more people, let's say, in this metaphor, and some things are time related, so they have a dimension in time. Like, for example, the law. To change the law takes 20 years, right? So there is a time factor that can be taken in account at this. Well,
I like that. That's an interesting take. I think there's a lot of overlap between scale of groups and time, but there is definitely a cool opportunity when we think in additional dimensionality for these things. So, Max, what I will encourage you to do is like follow your intuition, and like if you can cluster this stuff together, I think we have the opportunity to sort of move forward and take an additional step. The next step, let me go back to the screen sharing goodness. Oh, yay. Pushing buttons. While you do all that nonsense, let's go back to the process. So we have in multiple groups of 4, we have created a sort of single chart, yada, yada, yada. Now, the next question is on which levels have attention and resources been invested to date? Which levels have been neglected? And which, and then what do we know about the status and dynamics play at those different levels? What I would say is we've got 2 groups of 4. So more or less, we can either split into pairs and each pair can sort of grab a level, or we can stick with these groups of 4. Is there a sensation from the group about what would be particularly helpful?
As maybe a such alternative, as we're trying to kind of see where the time and energy is invested, then maybe we might use voting, to highlight some where do I work, for example, and everybody can kind of stick maybe 5 points or something to different things. Just as a proposal.
I'm down for that. Can you run that in Miro, or do you want to use the chat for it?
Well, Miro has, if everybody has access to Miro, then you can. Yeah, I think, no, I don't have rights. The owner of the framework can launch voting. But we also need to agree which specific map do we vote on.
Oh,
if
Christ.
you want to tell me how it works, I can do it, huh? I'm just not. Okay, voting. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. How does it work? Okay, there is voting.
sorry, but what are we voting about?
Well, we have an attention challenge. So we have a set of people, and we can't pay attention to every one of these layers all at once. What we can do is we can add some additional dimensionality onto more or less a couple of these levels and enrich them with some additional sense making that we can do with the eco cycle. But we have to come to the conclusion of which one of those layers is the most interesting that we want to pay that attention to.
Okay, understood.
I think it's easier if we write on the chat.
Yeah.
Okay, sounds great.
Whichever.
Well-
I don't know. Yeah.
Well, we might be able to distribute this decision as well. If we just say, all right, we're going to split into pairs, and the 2 of you to land on which level you want to pay more additional attention to, and then just work on it, then that also eliminates the necessity to come to a broad agreement in the group. We can get some diversity on that.
Hey, Jeremy, can we get a quick summary of the levels themselves and what they represent, maybe by color? I'd say, I don't know. I don't know if there's a naming that's already been defined, but that might help, like the red, the orange, the yellow, the green, the blue, the purple. Or are we still working with, I guess, the yellow tags that seem to be hinting at the level name?
Yeah, I think I definitely recognize that as well. The yellow post-its seem to have like a good sort of ontology that stacks up on top of each other and takes this plurality of stuff. So if we presume that that's sort of good enough, and that we're going to split into pairs, and each pair is just going to sort of grab a level and then go to town with it. What I want to do is draw your attention into the eco cycle. And the eco cycle is one way that we can start to organize what's going on, the dynamics in that level. So if you think about the eco cycle, there are stuff that is sort of nascent that is happening that we would consider in that seed or the regen phase at the top left. So when you look at that dimensionality, think about what those things that sort of belong in that category. What is nascent and what is just sort of emerging? That is in the idea space more than anything else. The space that is birth has had some time and energy put into it. You can see something there from the outside. That's the space of your MVP. So if regen is just an idea, birth is your MVP. It's like the sketch on the back of the napkin, so to speak, that lets you know, oh, somebody's put something into it, but it's definitely not ready. Can't take that to the bank. Whereas maturity are the things that are already out there, that are ripping, that are slapping, that are definitely doing something, whether we like them or not. But maturity is mature. It has the ability to bear fruit, if we go back to our visual metaphor of the eco cycle. And then creative destruction, their creative destruction is compost. It is chopping down that tree that has had a blight and burning it so that we can release that energy for new resources and new ideas in the regenerative phase. So you guys already have a lot of stuff, so to speak, in this visual, a lot of content. And what I would encourage you to do is make use of the eco cycle to add to it and to organize it for what's at that level of abstraction. Does that make quote unquote enough sense?
Honestly, not totally, but we'll try. Sorry today. Yeah.
We have to pick one of the layer, right?
Yeah.
So we do the eco cycle in one of the layer.
Okay.
Precisely. And what I would say might help you out is if we just stick with these groups of 4. So grab one of those layers and see if you can organize the eco cycle. Organize the eco cycle of what's going on in those layers, and think as well about these organizations that is sort of also at the heart of these commons framework, right? How might we be able to use the eco cycle to sort of arrange what is sort of going on there? Maybe everything that Giulio's got only represents the mature organizations, and we know about things that are sort of up and coming and have opportunity, but that are not quite there yet, that we might want to add. I don't want to pollute your brains too much, but give it a go, see what happens.
So here we are, the dream team.
Yeah, I left, but I'm also sticking for another 10 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's fun to do. I just have one observation, is that the outer layer and the inner layer are the one in which your action is possible, because in the outer layer you can use the imagination and make a theater performance or a film or a book and put it out. And in the inner layer you can organize with your friends and do something, be freelance. Is the middle layer that is impossible to act upon. Impossible is the difficult stuff, where the gatekeepers are, let's say. And gatekeepers can be concepts as well. Sorry.
No, just in continuation of your ideas, like where the chasm is, like basically when I it's most visible layers of inner and outer, but then coming in the middle is usually can facilitate the transformation between idea and outcome. So.
You
So
know,
which layer do you then suggest to focus on?
don't know, Giulio.
I would say the smaller one, the first.
Yeah, traditionally, you know, we get to ourselves and our little resources, and we try to act upon that. I would try to act upon the middle one. That is the one that actually we always think we are important to do anything about. And is where the access is kept by petty corruption, stupidity. You know, is the middle level that is the most difficult to approach. Infrastructure as well, you know. Length of a tweet, you know, can also be infrastructure, right?
Okay. So imagine
Okay.
we will focus on something between gatekeepers and ideology of oppression, right? Like we'll focus on this kind of layer.
I don't know. I think, I mean, when I talk about ideology of oppression, I talk about Paulo Freire mostly. That is the very lucid analysis of how to avoid replicating an ideology of oppression in the liberated phase. So you make a revolution, how to make a revolution without enhancing terror, right? That's a little bit his problem. And in this case, it's very technocratic. So the ideology of oppression, you know, can be in the idea of proof of stake, for example. You know, is that an idea that goes against oppression or it goes for oppression? I don't know. I'm just making an example, and so on and so forth. So in that sense, I think it's interesting to think about how can a small hopeful monster of a project interfere with the hard reality that is local, but that is, you know, from the bottom or from the top, without creating oppression.
Yeah,
in a
more
liberated way.
Concrete, getting more concrete about the because this is very good, but also very general. No, what we could say that is meaningful to this session topic for the post-capitalist economy thing, maybe. Because what you say is applicable to everything, no? I mean, it's a very good macro frame, but how do we? Thanks, Max, for doing it. I'm very lazy moment now.
No, I'm just thinking with you, but you know, this for me equate to the choice of structure. Do you create you know, a company to be legal? You stay outside of the system with a sort of an anarchistic black movement based on crypto. Are you visible? Are you invisible? You know, this kind of. Do you make a cooperative? Do you change the land you work in to have a better legislation? You know, it's very practical, actually. It has a very practical application, but it's metaphysical in a sense. No, it's a study of the system. Because
no, I agree. I mean, how do you apply it practically to this scenario?
This scenario. Well, I see that Max has a mind for order that I envy you. Yeah, I would put in the chasm the idea of oppression. You know, really like the structural, ontological idea of oppression. That in capitalism is Darwinism, social Darwinism in capitalism. It's, you know, the idea that enhances the oppression. Recently, we saw it with utilitarism. Utilitarism is an excuse for oppression, you know, and it's so obvious that you see it also in a series on Netflix applied. And you saw it in the big FTX Bakaboom, you know, that that's like a,
But
it's
that's
unbelievable.
altruism.
Yeah, well, that's
No, I'm joking. I'm joking.
yeah, you know that.
Because they use the ideology of
Yeah, exactly that. You know,
Yeah,
it's the
yeah.
use of altruism is an ethical. How do I say it? Fuck. Anyway, we understood each other.
Ethic washing.
Yeah, I mean the idea that the utilitarianism is the idea that it's the choice that does the good for the maximum number of persons is the one to be followed ethically. But it's a choice that can say, okay, then I send 5 million people to the gulags to save the other, the other 200 millions. You know, that's fantastic. So it's a very, very dangerous trap for the stupid. And I mean, sorry to say that, but there is a lot of stupidity in the world, me included.
Could you maybe...
I like it. I like it the way you structured, Max. What do you mean for anti-pattern?
Well, I'm not sure. Well, like it seems like it goes with. I'm not sure where do we start, you know, but if we start, for example, yeah, like community coming to movement, it's usually like, you know, I am seeing the chasm, you know, created there, but hopefully we close this chasm, you know, so we have a movement. The movement scales so much, then it kind of needs some kind of hierarchy ideology to maintain, you know, this movement that leads to revolution, terror, you know, like this ideology, which leads to oppression, social Darwinism. But then as it's oppression, you know, the cause of pressure creates anti-pressure, you know, so it's like thinkers otherwise, you know, people who think otherwise, you know, they come into isolation, they form a community, and then they form like anti-movement or something. That's how I saw it.
History with this.
I like it. We could add, you know, the cure, the pharmacon. So, you know, when you have a non-hierarchical society that is based on radical transparency, and, you know, the bet of some of us is that it's not going to imply necessarily revolution and terror.
Yeah.
But it's this idea of fractal that you could enact a society in which, you know, nobody owns the fractal, just small areas of it that are self-similar with the whole, and so on and so forth. I don't know. I would put it, otherwise it looks very grim, and somebody can tell us that the history is over. Anyway.
Yeah, can we translate it in a way? Could we say that if we translate this in economic terms, we should create structures that don't recreate this loop, but that break this loop? And so
it's not only economic, it's also, you know, the way you structure your on chain things when you decide what to put on the chain, what you don't put on the chain.
I mean economic in a broader sense of incentives and design choices.
That's what I mean. Yeah, as a design choice. Yeah, I think we agree. Max, okay, so you are a great organizer. Unbelievable. Mama.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, let's return to the session. I would be needed to switch to the article, but I enjoyed the work with you so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max.
Boom, shaka-laka laka. You nerds have done a thing of great value to me, and that is to offer me the opportunity to try and host this incredibly large behemoth of a structure. So I've got to run, so I'm going to make you host, Max, and
I will go too,
has to go.
Yeah.
So well, I think everybody has to go.
Exactly. Yeah. So but I am too curious to give up the fact that, like, what was the factor, the place that you guys thought had gotten a lot of attention, and what was the thing that might have under attention?
If I might answer, we thought that the middle layer was the most critical, is the layer that usually you cannot touch, because it's the layer that goes by, you know, you can be on the outside layer creating art, for example, or literature, and you can be in the small layer, in the closed layer, working with your friends, creating a co-op, etc. Is the middle layer that gatekeeps the whole thing. And we came out with a sort of doctrine of history but it might I mean, doesn't want to be a block, but it's just a starting point for a discussion and our thinking.
So, well, we have created some IP. Well, congratulations, gang. Thanks everybody for your time, attention, and energy. And I will see you around. We'll have to
Thank you,
figure out what to
Jeremy.
do with these artifacts and how we can
Yeah,
put them out into
let's
the world,
chat.
right? Kashes.
Have a good day.
Ciao, ciao, ciao.
Thanks, everybody. Closing the session. If you have any closing
Okay.
thoughts, please share. Otherwise, we'll.
Thanks. If you have any other questions, feedback for the framework itself, you can write me, and yeah, I'm always there. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Cheers.